My name is Riley Camden. I'm 28 years old. I had a brother, Ethan, who was 5 years older than me. Our mom raised us alone after our dad died in a car accident when I was 4 and Ethan was 9. I barely remember my dad, just blurry flashes of him throwing me up in the air and catching me while I squealed so loud the neighbors probably heard. Then one day he was gone, and everything in our house shifted like someone had quietly rearranged the gravity. Mom took his death hard. I get that now, looking back as an adult. But what I didn't understand as a kid was why Ethan suddenly became the center of the universe and I became background noise. He was 9, so he became the man of the house. I was 4, so I became the kid Mom forgot about half the time. It started small. When I was 7, I had a dance recital the same day Ethan had a soccer game. I remember sitting at the kitchen table, swinging my legs, clutching the wrinkled flyer in my hands. "Mom, my recital is on Saturday," I said. "It starts at 2. She was packing Ethan's gear bag, tucking snacks into the side pocket. "That's the same day as Ethan's game," she said. "His team needs him, honey. He's the only one who can play his position." "Can't you go to both?" I asked. She didn't even look up. "We'll see." "We'll see" became no. I sat backstage that Saturday in my purple tutu, watching the other girls' families fill the auditorium. Moms and dads taking pictures, grandparents waving from the front row, little brothers and sisters bouncing on the seats. Every time the door opened, my heart jumped. Every time, it wasn't her. When my class went on stage, I danced under the hot stage lights, eyes squinting into the darkness, still hoping I'd see her somewhere in the crowd. I never did. My teacher, Miss Andrea, drove me home afterward because there was no one waiting for me. She tried to make small talk, complimented my spins, told me I'd done great. I stared out the window, clutching my flowerless hands together in my lap. That became the pattern. Ethan's stuff always came first. I was 13 when I won first place at the regional science fair. I'd built a small robot that could sort recyclables from regular trash. It wasn't much to look at, wires sticking out, a plastic bin that had seen better days, but it worked. It took me 5 months of trial and error. I taught myself basic programming from library books and YouTube videos because we couldn't afford fancy camps or tutors. The judges said my project was the most impressive they'd seen from a middle schooler in years. They gave me a blue ribbon and told me I qualified for the state competition. My hands were actually shaking when I went home. Mom was sitting at the kitchen table with Ethan, helping him fill out college prep forms and some questionnaire about leadership potential. "Mom, look," I said, holding up the ribbon like it was made of gold. "I won first place. I'm going to state." She glanced at it. "That's great, Riley." Her eyes slid back to Ethan's paperwork. "Now, for this essay, you should talk about your leadership on the football team, Ethan. Colleges love that." I stood there for another minute, the ribbon suddenly heavy in my fingers. Then I went to my room, pinned it to my bulletin board next to all my other awards she had never really looked at, and sat on my bed, staring at the wall. The state science fair was in April. I placed 7th out of 200 students. Mom didn't come. She said she had to work. I believed her until a week later when I heard Ethan casually mention how Mom helped me move into the dorm for that summer program. Same day, same hours, different priorities. When Ethan got accepted to State University the next year, you'd think he'd gotten into Harvard. State University had a 70% acceptance rate. Literally, 7 out of 10 people who applied got in. But Mom threw a party like the news cameras were coming. The whole extended family crammed into our tiny house. There was a sheet cake with his future school logo, and she posted about it on Facebook 25 times. I counted. There were pictures of Ethan, long captions about how proud she was, quotes about a mother's love for her son, and paragraphs about how hard he'd worked and how bright his future was. My cousin Madison texted me, "Your mom's really going hard on the Ethan posts, huh?" "Yeah," I wrote back. "She's excited." I didn't tell Madison that it hurt, that I'd just been accepted into the school's robotics club, that I'd taught myself 3 programming languages, that my math teacher had told me I was the best student he'd had in 15 years. None of that got a Facebook post, not a picture, not a sentence. Christmas when I was 16 was when it really clicked, when the vague ache turned into something sharp. I'd been walking dogs in the neighborhood for months, saving every bit of cash in a jar hidden in the back of my closet. I bought Mom a nice scarf she'd mentioned once in a store window. I got Ethan a gift card to his favorite restaurant. I even bought presents for my aunt, uncle, and Madison. $200 might not sound like much, but to me, it was a small fortune. Christmas morning, Ethan tore into his presents from Mom. A $1,500 laptop, new clothes, probably $400 worth. Concert tickets to see his favorite band, another $150. He didn't say thank you, just started setting up the laptop right there on the coffee table like it was his birthright. Then it was my turn. I opened a small envelope from Mom, a $30 Target gift card, then a pack of socks that weren't even my size. I stared at them for a second, the smile I'd been practicing cracking just a little. "Do you like them?" Mom asked absently, already watching Ethan click through the laptop setup screen. "I love them," I lied. 2 years later, when I was applying to colleges, I tried one last time to believe we were a real family, that if I asked for help, this time might be different. I'd gotten into a good tech school in another state with a 70% scholarship. It was everything I'd wanted: strong computer science program, great connections, a chance to get out. I sat across from Mom at the kitchen table, the acceptance letter and financial breakdown printed in front of me. "Mom," I said, I need help with tuition. My scholarship covers 70%, but there's still the other 30%. And room and board. I was wondering if you could help a little, maybe a small loan." She sighed, already shaking her head. "Riley, I'm already helping Ethan," she said. "He graduated, and he's renting an apartment. I'm helping him with his rent until he gets on his feet. There's no money left. You'll have to figure it out yourself." The words settled over me like a thin layer of ice. "Okay," I said, "I'll figure it out." And I did. I took out federal loans to cover what the scholarship didn't. I enrolled as a computer science major at the tech school 800 miles away. When I packed my bags, 2 suitcases, and a box of old textbooks, no one made a big deal of it. There was no party, no cake, no Facebook post. Mom hugged me at the bus station, told me to call when I got settled, then turned back to answer a text from Ethan about his utilities bill. I climbed onto that bus, found a seat by the window, and watched my hometown shrink in the side mirror as we pulled away. My stomach twisted, but beneath the hurt there was something else, something small and stubborn and bright. If they weren't going to show up for me, I would show up for myself. I pressed my forehead against the cool glass, closed my eyes, and made myself a promise. I was done waiting to be chosen. From now on, I would choose me. College was supposed to be a fresh start, a blank page, a place where no one knew me as Ethan's sister or the kid Mom forgot. Instead, it became a 4-year survival course. My scholarship covered most of tuition, but everything else, rent, textbooks, food, emergencies, was on me. And I quickly learned that being brilliant didn't matter nearly as much as being able to stay awake. I waitress at a diner on weekdays, usually after my afternoon classes. I'd get home around midnight, peel off my grease-scented clothes, shower in water just this side of hot, and fall into bed. On weekends, I worked the overnight shift at a 24-hour gym, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., Saturday and Sunday. No days off, no margin for error, no safety net. I lived on ramen, peanut butter sandwiches, and whatever food the diner allowed me to take home before it expired. I owned 2 pairs of jeans and 5 shirts, rotating them until the fabric thinned at the elbows. My roommates partied on weekends. I refilled coffee and wiped sweat off ellipticals. They slept until noon. I dragged myself to morning classes with eyes that felt like they were full of sand. Some nights, during a dead hour between gym customers, I'd sit behind the desk watching lectures on my laptop, teaching myself additional programming languages: Python, C++, JavaScript, anything to push myself forward faster, toward a future without debt and without asking for permission to exist. The summer after my second year, everything came crashing down. I got the flu, the real kind, the kind that makes your bones feel hollow. But missing work wasn't an option, so I showed up anyway. I barely made it through 2 hours before my vision went fuzzy and the floor tilted sideways. I fainted in the middle of taking someone's order. They called an ambulance. I refused to go because I couldn't afford even stepping inside one. Instead, I sat in the back office for an hour, shaking, sweating, furious at myself for being human. I missed 3 days of work. Rent was due in a week. I was short $300. My hands shook as I stared at my bank balance. I hadn't called Mom for anything, not since she denied helping me with college. But I was desperate. I told myself maybe this time she'd remember she had 2 children. I dialed her number. "Mom," I said, voice tight. "I'm really sorry to ask, but I'm short on rent this month. I got sick and missed shifts. Could you lend me $300? I'll pay you back next month." She sighed, not concerned, not worried, just inconvenienced. Riley, I just sent Ethan money for his rent. I don't have anything extra right now. Can't you ask your roommates? My roommates are broke, I whispered. Well, I don't know what to tell you, she said. I can't help. Okay, I said. Thanks anyway. When I hung up, I stared at the wall. The tears came quietly. Years of them I'd refused to shed. I wiped them away with the back of my hand, took a breath, and went to my closet. I pulled out the one valuable thing I owned, a designer winter coat Madison's parents had given me the year before. It had been too nice for me then. It was too nice now. I brought it to a consignment shop, sold it for $350, paid my rent, went back to work. And I promised myself that night that I would never ask for help from my family again. Despite the chaos, I graduated in 4 years with a 3.8 GPA. I did it completely alone, without a single dollar or a single "I'm proud of you" from the people who called themselves my family. Graduation day was a strange mix of pride and numbness. I put on the cap and gown I'd rented, couldn't afford to buy one, and walked across the stage with my heart in my throat. Families cheered from the stands, waving, crying, taking pictures. My section was empty. I'd expected it. That didn't make it hurt less. Madison wanted to come, but it was finals week at her university. She sent me flowers and a card that said, "I'm so proud of you. You did this all by yourself." It was the only acknowledgement I got. Well, not exactly the only one. A week later, a card arrived from Mom. Inside, she'd written, "Congratulations on graduating. Sorry we couldn't make it. Ethan had a job interview that day. Love, Mom." A job interview. Ethan had graduated 2 years earlier. A job interview trumped my graduation. I didn't call. I didn't text. I dropped the card into the trash and felt something inside me close. Not break, close. Like a door I'd been trying to hold open finally clicked shut. Finding a job wasn't easy. I applied to hundreds of positions. Most companies didn't respond. But eventually, one did. CloudSync Technologies. A small tech startup trying to make a dent in cloud storage. They offered me a junior developer position at $55,000 a year, plus stock options. I moved to the city, found an apartment with 3 roommates. My bedroom barely fit a twin bed and a desk, but it was mine. Paid for by me. Earned by me. The work was intense. I was the youngest person on the development team and had to prove myself every single day. I showed up early, stayed late, volunteered for the projects nobody else wanted. While my coworkers went out for drinks, I went home and studied new frameworks and languages. Every extra dollar went to student loans. 2 years in, I'd paid off half my debt. My coworkers thought I was crazy to live frugally while making decent money, but they didn't understand the crushing weight of watching interest grow on $45,000 in loans. I wasn't going to let debt chain me the way my family had tried to. CloudSync grew fast. We went from 10,000 users to 500,000, then 1 million, then 2 million. I redesigned a huge part of our infrastructure, something everyone thought would be too risky. It made everything faster, more reliable. Users loved it. Leadership noticed. 18 months after I started, they promoted me to team lead. I was 24, managing 5 developers. 6 months later, I became development manager with 12 direct reports, then director of engineering, then, at age 26, CTO. 40 developers reported to me. I made every major technical decision. I sat in executive meetings with people who assumed I was 10 years older until I corrected them. Meanwhile, my student loans? Gone. Paid off. Every cent. Then everything changed. Megatech made an offer to acquire CloudSync. They bought the whole company, and suddenly, the stock options I'd been quietly accumulating for 5 years became something I never imagined I'd see in my lifetime. $1.5 million at 27 years old. More money than my mother had ever earned in her entire life. I didn't tell her, didn't tell Ethan, didn't post it, didn't celebrate online. I just kept working, kept saving, kept planning. For the first time ever, my life was mine. 8 months ago, a coworker mentioned his neighbor was selling a house about 40 minutes outside the city. I wasn't even looking to buy, but he showed me the listing, and something about it pulled at me. I drove out on a Saturday morning. The second I pulled up, I knew. The house was 4,200 square feet on 3 wooded acres. 5 bedrooms. Massive stone fireplace reaching up 2 floors. A master suite with carved wooden doors that opened onto a terrace overlooking a stream. A dream painted into reality. The asking price was $875,000. A year ago, that number would have made me choke. Now I could afford it. I made an offer that day, full asking price, cash, no conditions. It was accepted immediately. Only Madison knew. She helped me move in. We opened boxes while Max, the shelter dog I adopted, ran circles in the yard like he'd never known freedom before. Madison stood on the terrace and whispered, "Riley, you actually did it." I had a house, a dog, a garden, friends from a hiking group, a life that didn't involve asking anyone for approval. I'd built all of it myself, and not one family member had any idea who I'd become. By the time Thanksgiving rolled around that year, my life felt split in two. There was the life I lived, my house surrounded by trees, Max curling at my feet every night, my job where people respected me, the friends I'd chosen, the peace I'd built. And then there was the life my family imagined I had, some vague, struggling existence in a tiny apartment where I could barely take care of myself. They never asked for updates, so the outdated version of me lived on, perfectly convenient for every condescending comment. I barely went home anymore, 3 or 4 times a year, tops. But every time I did, nothing had changed. Everyone crowded around Ethan, showering him with praise for whatever mediocre milestone he'd hit that month. Ethan got a nice performance review at work. Ethan might be promoted next quarter. Ethan is thinking about taking a night class, so ambitious. I'd stand there, leaning against a wall with a cup of coffee, invisible as wallpaper. When relatives asked me how I was doing, I'd give the same answer. Everything's the same as before. Because telling the truth wouldn't matter. They didn't want to see me. Last spring, the family group chat exploded. Ethan had gotten pre-approved for a mortgage. Mom immediately started planning a celebration like he'd announced the cure for cancer. "We have to celebrate this huge milestone." 15 exclamation points, I counted. When I arrived at the party, Mom's backyard looked like Pinterest had thrown up confetti everywhere. Balloons, streamers, a banner reading, "Congratulations, Ethan," in giant letters. There was even a cake shaped like a house. About 20 relatives were there, all gathered around Ethan like he'd personally invented the concept of homeownership. "It's 2,400 square feet," Ethan bragged. 4 bedrooms, got a great deal. Everyone oohed and nodded like he was Moses descending from the mountain with the 10 Commandments. I stood by the food table, spooning potato salad onto my plate and making myself as small as possible. At one point, I went inside to get a glass of water and heard voices in the kitchen. Ethan's voice, low and anxious. "I'm still short on the down payment," he said. "Can you lend me another $10,000? I know you already gave me 15 for the first part, but I'm barely short." Mom sighed, but I could hear the softness in her voice. She was already halfway to yes. "Ethan, that's my retirement savings." "I'll pay you back," he said confidently. "This house is an investment, you'll see." I didn't need to hear the rest. I knew the ending. She'd give it to him. She always did. Meanwhile, she had once refused me $300 so I wouldn't get evicted. That night, lying in bed, staring at my ceiling fan spinning in slow circles, something gnawed at me. Something wasn't adding up. So I did what I do best. I investigated. 2 hours later, my stomach dropped. 5 credit cards, $47,000 in debt, 2 personal loans totaling $20,000, an overdue car loan, a credit score of 580. My brilliant, beloved golden child brother was a financial disaster waiting to happen. Mom had no idea, and she was throwing her entire retirement into the black hole he'd dug. Thanksgiving came, and with it, Ethan's housewarming party. His neighborhood was pure suburbia, identical houses in neat rows, manicured little lawns, matching mailboxes. His house looked exactly like the 7 on either side of it. I pulled up in my paid-off car, wearing the expensive denim suit I'd bought myself, boots polished, hair done. Not for them, for me. For the girl who used to stand forgotten in a purple tutu and secondhand socks. Inside, the house was buzzing. 15 people in the living room and kitchen, all praising Ethan as he gave them a tour. "And this is the master bedroom," he announced proudly. "It's got a walk-in closet." Everyone oohed again. You'd think he built it with his bare hands. I kept quiet, smiled when people looked my way, played along. Dinner was served. A long table, mismatched chairs, conversations overlapping. Then Ethan stood up, tapping his wineglass. "Ashley and I have some news," he said dramatically. "We're planning to start trying for a baby next year." The room erupted in applause. Mom burst into proud tears. "Oh, Ethan," she said, grabbing his hands. "You're doing everything right. A house, a career, now starting a family." Then she turned to me. You know, Riley, she said, smiling like she was about to hand me a participation trophy, when are you going to settle down? I worry about you living all alone in that small apartment with no prospects. Ethan smirked at me from across the table. Something in me clicked. A switch. A lock. I'd held shut for years, swinging open. I put down my fork and looked at her calmly. I settled down 8 months ago, I said. I just didn't invite anyone who doubted me. The table went silent. What do you mean? Mom asked. I took a sip of water. I bought a house, I said. Moved in, built a life, adopted a dog named Max, planted a garden, made friends. I've been settled for months. Ethan barked a laugh. What, like a studio apartment? No, I said softly. A house bigger than this one, actually. The smirk slid off his face. 4,200 square feet, I continued, on 3 acres of land, 5 bedrooms, stone fireplace, a master suite with a terrace overlooking a stream. I let the words hang in the air. I paid for it in cash. Mom's eyes widened. Relatives exchanged looks like I'd just started levitating. You're lying, Ethan snapped. There's no way you could afford that. I tilted my head. Want to talk finances, Ethan? I asked sweetly. Let's talk about your $580 credit score, your $47,000 in credit card debt, your overdue car loan, your $20,000 in personal loans. You're drowning, and you can barely make your mortgage payments. But sure, let's pretend I'm the one struggling. Ethan's face turned a shade I'd never seen on a human before. Mom looked like someone had unplugged her emotions and plugged them back in wrong. I worked my ass off, I said, my voice steady. I got 5 promotions in 6 years. I became CTO of my company at 26. When Megatech bought us, my stock options became $1.5 million. My salary is $185,000 a year, plus bonuses. So no, Ethan, I'm not lying. I just stopped playing a game that was rigged against me from the start. Ethan stood so fast his chair toppled. You think you're better than me? No, I said softly. I just stopped letting you pretend you're better than me. Mom stood, voice shaking with fury. Riley, how dare you ruin Ethan's party? Get out. I rose, calm, steady, done. You could have seen all of this yourself, I said, if you'd looked at me even once, instead of obsessing over your golden child. The room stayed silent as I walked out. My hands shook when I reached my car, but not from regret. From relief. From finally hearing my own voice. When I pulled into my driveway, Max was already in the window, tail wagging so hard it rocked his whole body. I opened the door, and he leapt up, covering my face in sloppy kisses. I changed out of my suit, put on sweatpants, made tea, and stepped onto my terrace. The woods behind my house rustled in the breeze. The stream murmured in the distance. My phone lit up with calls. Mom, Ethan, Mom again, aunts, uncles. I didn't answer any of them. I didn't owe them explanations or apologies. I told the truth. If they couldn't handle it, that wasn't my problem. I went to bed and slept better than I had in years. For 2 weeks after Ethan's disastrous housewarming party, my life was quiet, peaceful, almost unnervingly so. No messages from Mom, no guilt-tripping voicemails, no thinly veiled jabs about family obligations, no Ethan claiming I'd ruined his happiness. Just silence. I went to work, came home to Max, walked the wooded trails behind my house, cooked dinner for myself. Actual meals, not student survival rations. Went to brunch with friends from my hiking group, had dinner with a coworker I was maybe starting to like. For the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for someone else to approve of me. I just lived. Then one afternoon, my phone rang. Mom. I don't know why I answered. Curiosity, maybe. Some small, deluded hope that she might say something human. Something like, I'm sorry. Something like, I'm proud of you. Something like, I didn't know what you were going through. But no, of course not. Riley, Mom said, breathless, we need to talk about Ethan. Of course we did. Not I'm sorry. Not I didn't treat you right. Not I was wrong. Just Ethan. What about him? I asked, leaning against my kitchen counter, Max at my feet chewing his favorite toy. Mom exhaled shakily and I could hear the fear underneath. He's in serious financial trouble. I didn't say anything. He's 2 months behind on his mortgage, she continued. The bank keeps calling me. You? I'm listed as co-borrower, she admitted in a shaking whisper. He had me sign some papers months ago, but I didn't know I'd be responsible if he couldn't pay. So she'd signed legal documents without reading them. To help Ethan. Shocking. My retirement savings are gone, she said. I gave him $25,000 already for the down payment. And now, if he defaults, she choked on the rest. I might lose my house too. Still, I said nothing. She pushed forward anyway. Riley, I need your help. Can you lend him money to catch up on the payments? Just until he's back on his feet. A faint buzzing filled my ears, like standing under a power line just before it shorts out. I looked around my house, my paid-off house, my land, my garden, the life I had built alone. And then I thought about the purple tutu recital she missed, the science fair she ignored, the Target gift card, the socks that weren't even my size, the $300 she refused me when I'd fainted from the flu, the empty chairs at my graduation, the Facebook shrines to Ethan while I scraped my way through college. And I thought about the moment she'd looked at me across Ethan's dinner table and said she worried about me having no prospects. No, I said. A stunned pause. Riley, please. No, he's your brother, she insisted. This is family. Family? I finally let the word out, sharp and flat. Where was family when I was working 2 jobs and eating ramen every day? Where was family when I fainted at work and needed $300 for rent? Where was family at my graduation? Where was family every single time I achieved something and you didn't even look up? That's not fair, she said weakly. I did my best. No, I said. You did your best for Ethan. You forgot you had 2 kids. She inhaled sharply. And now you want me to fix the mess you 2 made together? I continued. No, I'm done. Riley! I hung up. Then I blocked her number. I blocked Ethan. I blocked the aunts and uncles who started texting within minutes, lecturing me about family duty, telling me helping Ethan was the right thing to do. Max lifted his head from his dog bed, sensing something in the air. He trotted over and rested his chin on my knee. Warm, heavy, steady. It grounded me. You know what, Max? I whispered, stroking his fur. We've got Madison. She's family. She's always been family. That was the truth. It always had been. I texted Madison. Want to come over Saturday? Dinner's on me. She replied in 10 seconds. Yes. I've been worried since Thanksgiving. Your mom called me freaking out. I told her she brought it on herself. I smiled. Saturday came. Madison arrived with a bottle of wine and a bag of snacks, just in case. We cooked dinner together in my giant kitchen, danced around to old playlists from high school, talked about her new boyfriend and the trip she was planning to Japan. We drank wine on the terrace, bundled in blankets, while Max chased a tennis ball across the yard until he collapsed in a satisfied heap. It was easy, warm, light. And at one point, Madison looked at me, really looked at me and said, "You seem happy, actually happy. I don't think I've ever seen you this relaxed." And I realized she was right. I am happy, I said, and I meant it. For the first time in my life, I wasn't trying to prove anything. I wasn't waiting for a crumb of recognition. I wasn't chasing people who had already chosen not to see me. I was just living. It's been 3 months since Thanksgiving. I still have Mom and Ethan blocked. I hear updates through Madison, none of them shocking. Ethan's house went into foreclosure. He moved back in with Mom. Mom is working extra shifts trying to keep them afloat. Ethan is furious with me, apparently, says I abandoned the family. And the strangest part? I don't care. Not in the cold, bitter way I used to. Not in the angry, wounded way I would have years ago. I just don't care. I spent 24 years hoping, wishing, trying to earn love from people who never intended to give it to me. I'm done with that. Finally. Fully. Completely done. Now, I work. I take care of Max. I spend time with Madison. I hike. I code. I sleep well. I've even started dating someone new, slowly, gently, without pressure. People ask if I feel bad about cutting off my family. The answer is simple. You can't cut off something that was never really there to begin with. They turned their backs on me a long time ago. I just finally turned away too and walked toward a life where I'm seen, valued, and finally free.